Well, we're going to plant potatoes today, and there's a couple of things you need to know about planting potatoes before you go and purchase your potatoes. Now, our supplier is Wood Prairie Farms out of Bridgewater, Maine. It's a family-owned and operated farm for 42 years now, and they have specialty potatoes. We're not going to plant those potatoes today. We are going to plant potatoes that came from there that we harvested last year, late summer, because we saved some to hold over, and they're getting very long in growth, and we'll talk about that in a moment, what you should do and how to go about planting them. So we've got this bed prepared here. We've worked the soil with a garden fork, not a tiller. If you till, that is your choice. We choose to disrupt the soil and microbial life as minimal as possible, even though we have to loosen the soil to plant potatoes. You want to plant your seed potatoes when the soil is no colder than 45 degrees Fahrenheit. 50 is preferred, 45 at root zone. So if you're planting your potatoes about 6 inches deep, you want to get a soil read there. If the soil temperature exceeds 90 degrees Fahrenheit, your potatoes will shut off and die. So don't worry, that's not good either. Here in Wisconsin in Zone 5A, we are fortunate enough in some aspects here that we can plant an early variety of potatoes, and they will be ready about early to mid-August. We can also plant another crop of potatoes after the garlic comes out in mid-July, and then harvest those in mid to late October. So it works out kind of well. We get two different crops that we can finagle, make the harvest work. Now, that only holds true if you're planting early or mid-season potatoes. Early potatoes are 70 to 90 days, mid are 90 to 110. Your late varieties are 110 to 135. So keep that in mind based on where you're at, and make sure you get the right variety so that it will work for your particular growing location. So here are the potatoes that we're going to plant. Now these are actually ones that are chitting or sprouting right now, and then we'll be able to divide those and plant those later on in a couple of weeks. These here are ones that grew from last year. We harvested them, and they've been sitting in the cupboard, and they are sprouting. So there's a couple of things you want to do with these. One, you don't want to break the sprout off. What is occurring is the potato, the tuber itself, is actually creating the energy for the sprout to grow. If you break that sprout off, then that potato may not have enough energy to regenerate a new sprout. So if this is the case, and the potatoes still, they're going to be wrinkly, but if it's still relatively firm, you can go ahead and plant this. Now you want to plant this nearly all the way deep. Get most of that stem under the ground. There is no such potato that's going to put potatoes on the vine all the way up the stalk. That's simply not true. Universities have proven that to be a myth, such as potato towers. Now the potato tower works if you put a layer of potatoes, let them sprout, put more soil, put another layer, sprout, that type of thing. That works there, but a single potato at the base, 4 or 5 foot tall stalk, not going to produce any more potatoes than it normally would in the ground. So these we're not going to divide because there's not enough energy in the potato to sustain two portions. This one here would have, a normal potato, if it was healthy, we'd split it, divide it and cut both and let a sprout be on each chunk. We're just going to plant this whole. Now there is a number of ways in which you can plant your potatoes, containers, raised beds, the ground here. You can do it in the hill method, where you dig a trench, plant your potatoes, and then mound it up 4, 5, 6 inches. Or what we're going to do is we've worked the soil here. We're just going to take a trowel and dig a hole and plant the potato in the ground, and then leave the center open. We're going to get 2 rows in this 10 by 20, the 3 foot wide by 10 foot long bed, and then we'll leave the center open. So if we do need to trench, to hill, utilize the center portion as a trench, we can do that. The reason why you hill the potato is so you don't have potatoes piercing through the soil or working their way up and then getting green on them, and that can become toxic, or it is toxic, and you're not supposed to eat those. Green potato is not a good potato. That's a potato that's been exposed to sunlight. So that's the reason why you hill, to get all those tubers to develop in that root zone, and none of them will get exposed to the sunlight. So let's get planting. All right, I talked about that we're not going to dig a ditch or a trench, but I am digging or knocking a little row here, creating a drill so I know where I can put my potatoes. Now, when you're planting your potatoes, we want to space them. I'm going to go about 8 to 9 inches apart, and that's going to give this very loose soil. We're going to add sustained fertilizer. That's going to work real well. So about every 8 inches, I'm going to plant a potato. The row here between rows, about a foot there. And we've got this center part here where we can use to heal up if we need to. So we're going to get the seed potatoes planted here. Now what you can do is you can lay the potatoes out so you can get the right spacing. It's about right there. What I am doing here, I've got 3 red potatoes, and I'm growing those. I'm trying to do these in blocks. The reason why, by doing a grouping of potatoes of all Mod Podge and varieties, different varieties, is they're going to mature at a different state and different times, so you're not going to be able to dig up the whole row at one time. So by doing it in groupings, now some of these potatoes are, I can't tell if they're red or, a banana, fingerling potato or whatever the case is, so they're just going to kind of all go in one row. But the red ones I can space, and at least I can get a little bit, get these to, done at one time. So we're going to plant this potato. So again, you can do your trench, you can do your row. I'm just going to dig right down where that I marked it with the hoe there and get rid of that rock. All right, now I am every bit of 6, 7, 7.5 inches deep here. This soil is all loose. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to add a little bit of the Sustain All Natural Fertilizer to the hole. I'm going to work that in just so the potato is not really setting directly on it, but it will grow into it. Then we're just going to plant it all the way down, firm it down. Again, we don't want to break off this potato or any sprouts because it's trying to put roots on. Once it gets in the soil, it realizes it's got soil and it'll put roots on. Once it has enough roots, it will detach from the seed potato. And that's when you find that potato at the time of harvest. So we're going to put that all the way down. Now we're going to gently put soil around it. If we can cover the top up, even though it's a little green, we can just cover and mound that up a little bit. And we are good to go on that. And you'll see that piercing through. So I'm going to, in about a week or 2 weeks there, get rid of that rock. I'm going to get the rest of these planted, and then we'll talk about the importance of mulch. We're going to use leaves. We're going to put a heavy coat of leaves over this bed. One, to protect the soil from the atmosphere. Everything in nature is covered. Prairies, woods, that type of swamp areas, all got some kind of covering on it. Well, swamps or war. We're going to cover the soil here because everything in nature has some type of covering on it. Prairies, fields that are not agriculturally worked, woods have the leaves over the soil, so that's what we're going to do. If you don't have leaves available, good straw, a good layer of straw will work really, really well. I'm wanting to hold the moisture in, and don't worry about it if you've got a couple of inches of leaves or straw on top of your potatoes. They're already digging through or growing through 7, 8 inches of soil, so this is going to be no problem at all. So I'm just going to mound it up, and this will also feed the soil throughout the growing season here. You don't really, you can worry about the center if you want. I'm going to focus on the mounds here, and these leaves are very wet, so it will work, they'll hold into place. If you do use straw, you would want to wet it down if it's going to fly away. So that's how we're going to do it. And the advantage to having the leaves and the straw is if you have a lot of it and some of those potatoes do pierce through the soil, it's going to prevent them from getting sun on them and changing them to green. So that's an added benefit to mulching.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.